the Washington Huskies. Um, this was an interesting game. Um, look, I'm going to preface everything I'm saying right now. Rivalry weekend just happened. This was a rivalry game. I was worried about Washington State a little bit after I saw what they did to Colorado, who I said I thought had given up. But you know what? Colorado actually played a decent little game this past weekend against Utah. So maybe they had not given up, and maybe Washington State had kind of hit their stride again like they had in the beginning of the year. With all that being said, Washington only averaged 4.9 yards per play in this game. And there is nothing about Washington State's defense that's very impressive. Washington continues to live and die by the big play, and that's fine. That's what's got them here, and it might win them a Pac-12 championship. And I picked Washington in the preseason to go to the college football playoff. Very few people did that. I obviously saw something that I really, really liked in this Washington team, and I continue to like. But with all that being said, Washington State was able to run 76 plays in this game. I mean, they ran double digits more plays than the Huskies did in this game. Very rarely do you see a team win after doing something like that. It doesn't happen very much. I look at these stats every week for tons of games. Very rarely is there a huge discrepancy in plays run like that, and the team that had less plays run won the game.
Yeah.
You know, Penix was 18 of 33, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He's got one more week for the Heisman thing, and he would need, I think, Bo Nix to play really bad, and I think he would need to throw for like 400 yards in that game to seriously be in the final conversation. Now, I think he's a finalist. I think he's a Heisman finalist for sure. But the rushing offense, 3.5 yards per rush. You know, I had a lot of Washington fans didn't like what I said about Washington's inability to run the football a few weeks ago. And they said, well, that's not the stat that matters. The stat that matters is yards per rush, yards per play. It's not about, they said, because we don't try to run the football a lot. So, yeah. We're not going to have a lot of yards. 3.5 yards per rush is not good. I don't care how many times you run the football. That's not going to get it done. What do you have any explanation as to why Washington State was able to hang in there with Washington? Because there is not a reason in the world, in my eyes, where they should have been hanging with the Huskies for this entirety of this football game. It came down to a game-winning kick that Penix couldn't even watch, which was amazing television, by the way. He had his head in a health trailer or whatever, and he was emotional. And I'm very, very happy for Washington Huskies. So typically on these reactions, I like to talk about the winner, and we are talking about the winner, but this wasn't a beautiful win, but they got it done like they have been several times this year. Not real pretty, not by a lot of points, but they keep winning, and they're one of the few teams undefeated. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, it was another sort of iconic or what we've come to expect from Washington's defense. They get 2 interceptions in this game, and they come at pretty pivotal moments. You know, there's never a bad moment to get an interception, I guess, but it seemed like they played that bend but don't break style. Washington State had 317 yards through the air, and it felt like that. I mean, it felt like they were able to extend their drives and make some big time plays. For as much as Washington has been the team that relies on the big plays, there were a lot of big plays from the Washington State players. The one-handed catch early on in the game was pretty awesome. And then there was an interception that was pretty crazy as well. It's kind of a one-handed interception. So there were some definite plays in this game that made it very fun to watch. I think it went about as expected. I was surprised at how many punts there were in this game. I'll be honest, because We saw all season long, both of these secondaries left something to be desired. I mean, they were pretty bad secondaries, and allowed a lot through the air. And
Mm-hmm.
on the other side, we saw two offenses that were great through the air. So typically, 1+1 = 2, but it didn't here. And there really wasn't as much in the air as I thought there would be, particularly on the Washington side. Penix finishes with just 204 yards and had a below average game, by all accounts. Definitely didn't boost his Heisman status at this point. But, I wonder how much Washington really wanted to put on tape and show in this game. I think that the game plan was to, not was to really, I mean, win the game without having to show too much. But I don't know that they did a great job of that. I think that this was way too close for comfort. And now that after an emotional win, they've got to go face Oregon, who's more rested. And I don't know. I think that it's going to be tough for Washington to bounce back from this game and get up for another game, so quickly and be at 100%, in comparison to Oregon, who's finally played, a big game and, finally won a big game and, probably feeling pretty good about themselves right now. I think that the sort of vibe is in Oregon's favor right now. And we got to see if Washington can match it.
Georgia Dogs 47. WSU was able to keep it close. The same reason Auburn almost won. Rivalry games are just different. Yeah, and I felt like Washington State felt like the team that wanted to be there more. And we talked about this a little bit, me and my buddy, last night that were watching the games. We saw some really close finishes. I was joking with him. I said, I'll never, ever bet on rivalry week ever again. A lot of the underdogs came through, man. And it's because a lot of them have something to play for that these other teams are just trying to get out of there with a dub.
Yep.
You know what I mean? These contending teams are just trying to get the dub and get out of there, I feel like, in a lot of these, and not so much trying to prove a point like they're underdogs or as the fan bases like to call them, they're little brothers, right? So I agree with that sentiment, Georgia Dogs. I totally agree with that sentiment. I am a little concerned with Washington. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. I like this team. I like their big play ability. I really do. Rome Odunze is absolutely incredible. Made a huge 4th down run in this game that set up that field goal. That was a huge clutch play. And I like Washington getting the ball to their playmaker when they need to. And I kind of agree with what you're saying, Mason, that the sentiment of, we're not going to run all our normal stuff. They ran the ball way more attempts than they typically do. So that they definitely tried to put more of an emphasis on running the football. But as I've said in weeks past, I feel like the interior of that offensive line, not great at run blocking, just kind of average. And Washington State was able to put a halt to it for the most part, really, really limiting Washington's ability to run the football. Dylan Johnson had less than 100 yards on a pretty good bit of carries. So be interesting to see how this team matches up in Vegas, like as we said, on Friday. Washington State fans, if you're watching, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. We want you to hang around, especially you Washington fans. Your season is far from over. So it's really, this is it. This is what it comes down to. Congratulations on the undefeated regular season. This week, everybody's 0-0. We're back to 0-0. When you get to this level of the football season, you start over, and you got to start stacking wins again, because each win is going to mean something really, really big, and that's why we want you to be tuned in the First and Long College Football Show so you don't miss a thing.